And a very good morning to you. Welcome back. This is the Morning Cafe Show on TV47. I am Shiksha Arora. And in case you've just tuned in, right now we're going to be discussing relationships. And our topic today is all about, relationships in the office, relationships in the workspace, and relationships where you're working. And our question today is, would you date a co-worker? Would you date your co-worker rather? I'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can chime in on WhatsApp. The number is 0793 267 279, or you can also call live on 0795 864. Have you ever done this in your life? Are you currently dating your co-worker? Do you think it's healthy to do so? Or do you think that nope, relationships should stay away from the workspace, from the workplace rather? So remember, that's where you can find us on social media. Call, WhatsApp, let us know on TV47, that is at TV47KE on Facebook, and you can also find us on X, that's at TV47 News. My handle is at Shiksha Arora, and with me in studio I have my guest today who will be discussing this particular topic. I have Dr. Julius Kimani, a counselor. Yes. Thank you so much for being on this particular show. And of course, I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on this particular topic. Yes. We also have Naseem Katha, who's a psychologist and the founder of Hugs organization. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Right, so this particular topic, I feel like it's already got a lot of feedback on social media. We'll get to it later on. But yes, I'll start off with you. Maybe you can tell us, Dr. Julius Kimani, what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's healthy to date a co-worker?
I will say there are pros and cons in dating a co-worker.
Okay.
And at the same time, I will say, you see, it's very hard to control relationships. Mm-hmm. People can like anybody. Yes. And there are no boundaries on who you're supposed to like.
Absolutely.
And so I think if I was asked, I would say yes, and I would at the same time say no. And I would qualify those yeses, because I would say yes in this way. Sometimes you find dating outside there can be very tiring. Yes. Because number one, it's very hard to know the person that you are dating. You have to go for coffee dates, you probably have to spend time together. And if you're spending, let's say, 6 to 7, 8 hours at a workplace, right, maybe the only time you have with the other person is maybe an hour or two in the evening. That's it. And so the workplace is an opportunity where you are likely to meet a new person. And if you meet that person, number one, you are able to know their character, because you can see how they handle work. You can see how they handle the other co-workers. You can be able to see their temperaments. So it's a very nice study ground. If you look at the workplace and let's say college, they're almost the same thing. Right. Because you spend a lot of time in college, and that is where you find most people get married out of college. And work is also a place where people spend a lot of time. So if well handled, I think it would be okay. But on the other hand, and I think we shall be discussing later, on the other hand, it can also be risky. Yes. Because it can also affect both of you. You know, as we say, fishing in the company pool or company pond can be quite a tricky thing. Yeah. So there are dynamics that need to be taken care of. If you're saying, yes, I can, then you need to understand the dynamics behind it. Okay. If you're saying no, then you need to explain or understand why no.
Interesting. And Naseem, what are your thoughts on this? I feel like Julius is very, I would say, pro. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I'd say it's a sword that cuts both ways.
Okay.
So it can be good, it can be bad. But then again, it means you really need to understand your risk assessment. What are you willing to give up? Like I said, you can't moderate or control who you date. Yes. But at the same time, remember, you have your work it's at risk in case the relationship doesn't work out. What happens? So I feel like your emotional intelligence needs to be at par when you decide this is what I want to do.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Now, we've seen situations where, as Naseem has mentioned, you would have a case in point where somebody is dating co-worker.
Yes.
And then they break up. And then now there's this bitterness and there's just awkwardness in this particular area. Everybody who's walking past already knows that these guys were in a relationship, and now wameachana, they're no longer together. And then there is this sort of the energy.
Yeah.
It's negative in the beginning, especially. There's resentment, there's bitterness. Obviously, this is if the breakup was not very amicable. It was a bit bitter, I would say,
Yes.
and it didn't happen in a mutual way. So when such situations happen, I mean, how exactly do you think co-workers should react, and how should the co-worker who isn't in this particular relationship, is a third party, I feel like what would they do and what should they do in such a situation?
I think it's a very tricky situation. That's why we say it can be a very, as she said, it can be something that cuts in such a hard way,
Right.
when it doesn't work out.
Okay.
And one of the things that is, of course, likely to happen is it will affect the work performance, because this is a place you're spending 8 hours, and the
Yeah.
guy who probably you're dating, your ex, is there. So the thing is, I usually say before, I will start with before. Before you start a relationship at the workplace, number one, understand the company policy.
Yeah.
Because there are companies that are very, very outright that say you can't have a relationship. So understand the policy, so that if you are stepping into that arena, then you know that you could be risking your job. But if you're deciding that you're going to have a relationship, then you need to have seen ahead. Ask yourself a few questions. What would happen if we broke up?
Okay.
Because if you look at what might happen, then you may enter with you enter with a lot of caution. You
Yeah.
don't hurry things up. Because sometimes the relationship at the workplace can be very hot. They can be like a matchbox. You put it on and it flares quickly.
Right.
Then it of course burns out.
Okay.
So I will say, what needs to happen, you need to act maturely.
Okay.
I mean, you have to decide that if it's that person, you can't start. You're working in the same department.
Yeah.
You can't avoid them.
Yeah.
So be professional. If you come to the workplace and you have parted ways, which is very hard, greet them. If you have to do work together, just imagine that you are working with somebody that you don't like, but you have to deliver.
Interesting.
But you have to deliver.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying at the same time, it is very hard.
Yes, it
because you're trying to draw, especially for men can switch off.
Yeah.
Men can switch off completely, and they can look at you. They had a relationship with you yesterday, and the next day you are like,
And nobody to them.
Exactly. But for ladies, I think the emotional component of them,
Attachment is still there.
it is still there.
Seeing this person is very hard every single day. Personally, for me, I don't think I would, because the truth is that I don't think I have that emotional capability to deal with this person and also handle work, right? I feel like putting the two together and just mixing them, it's kind of messy, especially if things don't go well.
True.
Right? If things don't end up where you want them to end up in future, you guys part ways, I feel like there is this sort of animosity that you have against this person, and it may not even be a bad breakup. Imagine, it may be that you guys have parted in a very amicable way, but at the end of the day, this person is still somebody that you expected to share life with in future, right? You had these dreams with this person, and then all of a sudden now you're expected to read a news bulletin with them. I can't imagine what I would be feeling in such a situation. Naseem, what are your thoughts regarding, seeing this person every single way and also maintaining professionalism?
First of all, I like what he said, especially women. But men also get emotional.
Yeah.
So other than understanding the company policy, I feel like people really need to understand the whole component of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Which has like 4 fundamentals.
Okay.
Which is self-awareness. You need to really know yourself, know how you handle yourself, or what triggers you in certain situations,
Right.
especially relationships and everything. Other than that, you look at self-regulation.
Okay.
Are you able to regulate your emotions? Are you the kind of person that you'll get a quarrel, at home, and then you're
Bring
in
it
the
to the
newsroom,
workplace.
and then
Yeah.
you start showing it, we're angry at each other. So you need to really know how to regulate your emotions.
Okay.
Other than that, we need to look at social, awareness. do you know when is the right time to do what? You know, you can't be PDAing in the office and everything. So are you able to know when is the right time for me to do X, Y, Z, or to bring this up, and so on? And then from there, you look into relationship management. How do you manage your relationships in regards to your co-workers who you're not in a relationship with,
Yes.
and the person that you're dating? So I feel like the whole concept of emotional intelligence is a very key thing. So you need to call yourself kamkutano at the, you know, behind the tent, and ask yourself those questions and see if these are things that you can handle. Because if you are an emotional person and you don't know how to regulate your emotions, then it means office romance is not for you.
Okay, very interesting. Very well put as well. Now remember, you can also chime in on this particular conversation at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. So lots of feedback already coming in. We've got one from Kevin Simiyu who says, personally, misiwezi. That's something that's a no-no for me. And then we have another message that's from Kai KE who says, I could admire back then, but nowadays, however beautiful she may be, I cannot and I will not. Okay, interesting. Ronnie Otieno who says, can never be me because we might have some difference at home and then we bring it to work and that will diminish our mental health plus our job professionalism will go down. We've got Herina who says, nah, not healthy. I would not recommend it. Just stick to work. That's what brought you together. It enhances respect and makes co-working last for long. Very interesting thoughts and feedback right there. Remember, you can also be a part of this conversation. As I said, just find us on TV47 Kenya. That's on Facebook. Let us know what your thoughts are on Instagram as well, at TV47 Kenya. And you can also find us on X. That's at TV47 News. The WhatsApp number is on your screen. It's 0793 267 279. And you can also call in live. We've got two very, very able people to answer your questions. If you've had a sort of situation where you've been with a coworker, romantically involved rather, please, they can answer your questions. And if this is something that you're currently frustrated with, you don't know how to go about this situation because now you're not together and it's a bit awkward, it's a bit bitter, it's not feeling great, the energy is negative, well, they can tell you how to deal with this situation. Remember, with me in studio, I've got Dr. Julius Kimani as well as Nasim Katha. Now, what are your thoughts about this particular feedback that's coming in, Julius? You know, you are a man, obviously, you're a counselor as well, and people are saying that, no, especially from what we've seen so far,
Yes.
most of the negative comments, most of the no's have come from men. Why do you think that's so?
You see, one of the things that men are afraid of,
Yes.
it is the negativity. Women are not able to so much hide their emotions. They can cry easily. They can even sometimes ignore you
Completely.
in a big way. I mean, they can walk away. Probably you went to greet them and because you've broken up, they can walk away. So as a man, you're afraid of being given a showdown
Okay.
at the office. So that's why you find a lot of men will say no, because probably they have experienced it,
Yeah.
or they have seen it happen at the workplace.
Yes.
The next thing is, of course, and I'm not saying that this is in a negative way.
Yeah.
Women have more words when it comes to speaking. So if you have maybe a small argument in the workplace concerning the relationship, most likely she will speak more words. By the time
She'll
you're
speak
saying-
her mind.
She will speak her mind and more. So you'll find maybe she
Okay.
has, by the time you're saying 2-3 words,
She's finished
she has
15.
15. And then she's correcting you
Yeah.
on the grammar that you're
That's
making.
hilarious.
So I think that's where you find the men are afraid.
Okay.
And experience has shown that sometimes it's really hard. 'Cause
Yes.
For men, it is hard emotionally, but unfortunately, they don't have a support system.
Okay.
If a guy breaks up in the workplace, the other guys will not even comfort him. In fact, some of them will be taking advantage and saying, when nilikwambia?
Yeah.
So I told you,
Why did you do
you
it?
saw it coming.
Yeah.
They will buy you a drink or they will take you out for lunch and even laugh over that situation.
Okay.
So for most guys, that's why they are saying, we can't go that way. So, and I would agree with them.
Interesting.
For anybody to have a relationship at the workplace, I think she mentioned there has to be serious emotional maturity.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
we have seen examples of this working, even in Kenya. There's two news anchors, very popular ones, who actually show that, you never ever see them look like they're bitter or look like they've had a fight at home. I feel like that's what you call
professionalism and emotional maturity, and of course emotional intelligence, as what Naseem has been mentioning over and over again. To get to that point, do you think it's a matter of time, where you've been with this person for so long and now you're able to put aside your differences and actually focus on work? Or do you think that even in the beginning of the relationship, it depends on the two parties? It depends on the partners, how they are as individuals and how they handle situations, Naseem?
It's both time, how long you've dated, and also the experience you've had in regards to work.
Okay.
By time I mean we can't have started dating and then this is our first fight. I don't know how we react. It's waters that we've not explored yet, and then you expect me to react in a more professional way, yet this is our first fight.
Right.
But if we've dated for a while, I know this is how he behaves, this is how I behave when it comes to an argument and everything, so I can know how to manage it and handle it in the workspace. The same thing as when I said experience at work. I can't be a new in my workspace and everything. I haven't done this job for a while and everything. I don't understand the policies very well and everything. And then now I'm having this pressure of relationship and seeing the person that, the problem, quote unquote, at the same work environment. Then that will, throw me off, whatever my focus is. So both experiences are very important. Work experience and how long you guys have dated. Because if you've dated for long, then most definitely you've been in a couple of fights and you know how to manage it and handle it. If your work experience also is long and you understand, your job description and everything,
right,
then also that plays a very big role into this. But if you're fresh and you're just starting to date and you're also getting into this new workspace, it's going to be very stressful for you.
Okay, interesting. Now if you're watching at home, please, why don't you call in? We always have very interesting callers. So I'm actually waiting to hear from somebody who's experienced this at home. Remember, the number is 0795045864. Once again, 0795045864. Call us, by the way. Tell us if you've experienced something like this at home. Have you been with your coworker? How did it go down? How did it pan out for you? Did it last? Did you break up? Is it something that was a bit tricky, challenging for you, or it was smooth sailing? We would really love to hear from you. So please do call us live. Now, Dr. Julius, in such situations, for instance, where the HR says, no, by the way, our policy is that we are not allowing you to date. We're not allowing people who work in this company to date. And you still want to carry out this relationship secretly. What do you think? What's this particular thing that will get somebody to be at the risk of losing their job to actually be really involved with somebody else and actually have a relationship? Do you think it's something that should not be, tolerated, especially as HR? Or do you think HR should be a bit lenient if these people are serious and they look like they actually maybe could possibly get married?
What we usually say, especially HR policies where they're so strict, they say no relationship. The reason why HR will say there are no relationship, because there are companies which have been sued.
Oh, okay.
Because of, in terms of, they say, sexual harassment. And maybe you broke up and now this lady brings up an issue
that happened
probably
in the past.
happened in the past. So they are careful about that. And so I would say, as we said from the beginning, relationships are very tricky. They are very dynamic. You can't close the taps of feelings. And sometimes they are too strong. But I'm saying now, if you know the company policy is a no relationship, then do it at your risk if you're going to be doing it. And know that you can be able to lose it. You may lose your job. But what do you usually say? If something happens and you feel like this is the partner that you feel that you may live with in the future, then it would be important to inform the HR.
Okay, before they find out.
Before they find out.
Yeah.
Tell them this is happening. And probably they may work out because maybe your performance is very good. They may work out a transfer for you, maybe to another branch.
Okay.
Or they may even advise you, either you stop or you continue at your own risk. So the best way to do it is inform the HR. But I will say again, there are times you may look at a situation and say, I see a future in this woman or in this man, and this work, I would rather lose this work and go for this.
Okay.
Because you see the value.
Yes.
So if there is an opportunity where you can go to another organization and you have already started something here, then you can take that risk. But on conclusion, I would say, don't take a risk that you have not calculated.
Okay,
Yes.
very, very interesting. Naseem, I've got a message here. This is from Laban Mohinda on Facebook, who says, personally, I can, so long as there's love and understanding. Why deny my heart what it deserves in the name of work? Very interesting there. Naseem, you know, you are somebody who's a psychologist as well. Have you, in your career, seen situations where it gets very ugly? Especially once you've been in a relationship with your coworker, and then obviously now you're not together anymore. You know, maybe you could just tell us about how these people actually dealt with it. Did they go for therapy? Did they actually have to get help from a counselor or a psychologist to be able to get past those feelings, especially when you're seeing this person every day, which makes it even harder?
I feel like the worst one would be whereby you've dated someone and then now you've broken up and now they're dating someone else at work. So you're seeing your ex with their current at work.
Okay.
So that is very stressful. So I know HR normally refer people to counseling and
Yes.
therapy, whereby you can be able to deal with, we normally call them grief sessions, because grief is not only when you've lost someone to death, but also when you've lost something that meant a lot to you. So they're taken through the whole stages of grief and how to deal with it moving forward, the transition aspect of it, you know, where now you're seeing your partner with their current and maybe they look more serious than, you know, the relationship you and them had and so on. So yes, therapy does work, and I would advise people to go for therapy.
Okay, interesting. Now remember, you can WhatsApp us on 0793-267-279. We've got a message that's come in, and this is Banito from Nyahururu, who says, personally, I can have a romantic relationship with anyone so long as there's love that binds us. It doesn't matter whether she's my co-worker or not. Naanguka nayo. Now, this is definitely a Gen Z, I feel. Let's talk about dating as young people, dating as people who, you know, don't really have that emotional awareness, emotional intelligence. Well, not necessarily. Some of them really do. But obviously, I guess in terms of maturity levels, you haven't really been in the dating scene for years because you're very young. Personally, you've probably just started dating. You've been doing it for maybe 2 or 3 years at most, and you've probably not even had serious relationships. Would you advise somebody who has just started dating and just started experiencing what love is to start off by dating in the workplace?
No.
Julius?
That one, I would say no.
Okay.
If you are starting dating, that would be the most risky place to start.
Right.
Because you are starting, that's what I would say, the beginning of your career.
Yeah.
And when you are beginning, there are people who will look at you and they will see you in a negative light for very many years.
Okay.
Because probably you made a fuss at the workplace, you made noise, you shouted, and you even probably caused some chaos in the workplace.
Yeah.
And the moment you do that, you can imagine what happens to the people who are maybe your online managers.
Yes.
They'll be saying, this is a person we can't promote. It's because of one instance. So I would say, if you are in a workplace and you are very new, fresh from college, wachana nayo. Because you're most likely to make a lot of mistakes. And your age, you know, there is maturity that comes with age.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I've worked with my wife for very many years.
Okay.
Of course, we have a school and we work together.
Oh, that's lovely.
And it has not affected us.
So you actually did date your co-worker and he was in a relationship with his co-worker?
No, I married her, then we started something.
Oh,
but But you see now what I'm saying. It's the same thing. It's like a continuation. You're working every day with this person.
Yeah.
And what you learn along the path is that you separate your relationship from the profession that you're following.
Okay.
But now when it comes to a young person, there's hot blood that is flowing. There is clumsiness that may come with that relationship.
Right.
There are jealousies that may spring up because of the you know, at the workplace. Maybe,
Office husbands, office wives.
Utapata, maybe your girl has come in, she has been given a bear hug by your senior.
Yeah.
And now you begin looking at your senior and you're thinking of the way that you can wait for him outside there and sort him a dog. So I would say no. If you're a young person,
Yeah.
work. Enjoy work. Have common friendships, I would say.
Yeah.
Then out of those friendships, you begin to see whether there is anything that come out of it.
Okay.
I wish most people would have, like if you're going to Mombasa, you see where you're going.
Yes.
When it comes to relationship, people don't like imagining where they're
Long term.
They don't imagine.
It's always
long
just short term.
And that's what messes it up.
Okay, interesting. Naseem, Dr. Julius mentioned something very interesting. He said that, imagine your senior comes to work and gives you your wife or your partner or your girlfriend a bear hug. How would you feel at that particular moment? And it's interesting that he's mentioned that because I feel like sometimes when you're dating somebody who's your boss, that is even trickier because they aren't just your coworker, they're actually a senior. So in such a situation, how does that usually play out? It could go both ways. You could be dating somebody who is a manager or somebody who is senior to you, and you're a guy and you're dating a woman who's much older. And then also it could be the other way where you're a girl and you're dating a senior.
So when it comes to such situations, we look at consent.
Okay.
Was it coerced? Because again, you realize in such situations, it might be those of, if you want me to give you this promotion, then we need to date.
Like favors.
Yes, favors. And at the same time, it doesn't matter what your credibility is. People will always be like, I'm a couple because they're dating the boss.
She's dating the boss.
And
he's dating the boss.
Yes, and if you're just starting your career, you're young and everything, then that puts a dent to your whole career trajectory and everything, because no one will ever see you for your capabilities and everything. So I would really advise people, especially if you're just starting and you're young. I'll say something very controversial. If you're 25 and below,
okay,
please. First of all, your brain is not fully developed.
Okay.
And the last bit of the brain that develops is that brain of critical thinking, decision making, and everything. So these are big decisions that you're supposed to be making. And if your brain is not fully developed and you're not be able to make those critical, decisions and everything, then I would tell you to just focus on work, and wait till you're fully able to analyze situations and think critically.
Okay, very interesting. I like that you said that and you gave a disclaimer. You were like, I'm going to say something very controversial here, so please take it with a pinch of salt. Interesting. So on WhatsApp, I've got another message. Remember, the number is 0793 267 279. Once again, 0793 267 279. Do let us know what your thoughts are. Would you date your co-worker? And if yes, why? If not, why not? So I've got a message here from Nicholas who says, dating co-workers can have far more negative consequences than positives. You can destroy a beautiful career by dating a co-worker. But on the other hand, it can also work well for some. It's God na hii mambo. Huwezi jua mahali mnapatana na mpoa wako. And I swear mimi si Gen Z lakini. Thank you, Nicholas. He was like, don't say I'm a Gen Z. I'm sure this is a millennial who's talking. Because, I have seen at times when you're younger, you are more open to taking risks.
True.
But when you are older, at the back of your mind, there's too much at stake. I feel like you're at the point in your career where you're just like, no, I need to make it. It's either a make it or break it situation. And sometimes you'd rather risk a relationship rather than risking your career. Dr. Julius, as a counselor, have you experienced situations where people have come to you and said that, Doc, I love someone so much, but I'm working with them and things are just not going for us well. What would your advice be in such a situation? Would you tell them, leave the job and focus on your work because this is something that, as you said, is a long-term vision? Or would you tell them that, no, right now your focus should be your career?
I think there are two things. You see, sometimes you can take up a career and you end up being lonely for a lifetime.
Okay.
You missed out an opportunity of being with a person that you really felt that you connected with.
Right.
And there are a lot of people outside there who are saying, I married the wrong person. Because they feel like they did it because time was passing and they just so that
and
I have
pressure from society, parents.
I have to board this bus because everybody's putting pressure.
Yes.
And maybe where they missed out is because there was an organization and they saw somebody they clicked up with and they couldn't continue because the company policy says no relationship.
All right.
That is why I'm saying there is a time where you sit down. I've had people who have sat down and they come and they say, we looked at our life and we thought we needed to get married and we are working together and we decided that one of us is going to quit.
Okay.
And out of that risk, you find later those people either become very strong and they are able to develop a very strong relationship and they are happy for it. So I will say this, if you feel like the person in that organization is the one, look out for a counselor who can be able to help you navigate your emotions.
Okay.
So that you're not getting into a relationship just for the sake that you saw it could be. You find out exactly why do you think so and how does the other person feel? Because the other person, you may be saying, I think she's the one, and the other one is saying, maybe. And so find out exactly through a counseling session whether that is the path you need to take. Then if you feel that this is the person you really want to be, and if you continued with them in that organization, it can
Yes.
ruin your career, then there is always a time you can say, let us give it time,
Okay.
1 or 2 years. I look for a job somewhere else, and then we continue with this relationship. Because true love waits. You can wait for 2 years. I've
Yeah.
seen guys who have gone to another country and they've waited for 5 years and they come back. So only when you feel that there's a future in that relationship should you take a risk and consider looking for another job, not continuing in the same job.
Okay,
Yeah.
very interesting, very well put as well. So on X, by the way, if you are on X and you'd like to be a part of this conversation, remember at TV47 News, that's where you're going to find us. So we put up a poll in the beginning of the day. And the question of the day obviously is, would you date your coworker? So far, we've got 61% that say yes and 39% that say no. So it seems to be as though people are pretty open to it, Naseem. Do you know, one thing I feel sometimes could come into play is the productivity, right? When you're with this person and you're spending a lot of time with them, I feel like sometimes the bosses or the seniors or even HR could feel as though you're not giving 100% to this particular job that you have. Does that usually cause an issue in the long run?
Yeah, it might.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a double-sided type of sword.
Right.
But at the same time, I also feel like most of the time when we get into relationship because the vibes are vibing and we don't look, like we said, we don't look into what does this mean, you know, in the long run. So I feel like people really need to evaluate, why am I getting into this relationship? And also expectations. You know, we are in the same working space. Does this mean, what happens when my productivity is low? What happens when your productivity is also low?
Yes.
What does that mean to us as individuals? Because again, when you're being given that pay slip, it doesn't come as a couple, it comes individually. So what happens when either one of us gets to lose this job because of
Yes.
this said relationship? Does that mean we will still continue dating?
Yes.
And what happens when we start breeding resentment because of maybe a work that maybe I was supposed to be sent to the fields and you ended up getting that job instead of me? So, you know, so I feel like we really need to explore all the expectations that we have around in terms of individually and also as a couple and also in terms of the whole aspect of the working field.
Okay, interesting. At TV47 Kenya, find us on Facebook. Remember, our topic today is dating a coworker. Is it a yes or is it a no for you? So a couple of messages that have come in. We've got Noah Vimeli KE who says, Kwanza hao ndio wanakuelewa zaidi. I'm going to get back to that because I think that's a very interesting viewpoint, especially because, you know, these days when you're working in different industries, I feel like sometimes you could clash because you feel like your partner does not understand where you're coming from. You know, you could be working overtime and they're calling you constantly, wondering why you're still there. Do you know, things like this, I feel like they could come into play later on. But yes, we'll get into that. I've got another message that says, yes, I will date. That's from the guru. Willie says, hawa ni kama brothers na sisters. So he says that, you know, if you're in a workplace, you should only consider the people that you work with as your brothers and sisters, not as your partners. We've got another one that says, wacha mambo mingi, no is no. Okay, interesting. Collins, who says, Z, Haiwezi, back to you in studio. Thank you. Very well received. I've got another one that from Shadrach Sindash who says, Kwani Koshida, I have been dating them na sioni tatizo. Interesting. We've got Wilfred who says, very good discussion. I don't see any problem in dating a colleague as much as it's difficult. Please just maintain the professionalism. Oh, interesting. We've got one on WhatsApp. By the way, remember our WhatsApp numbers, our WhatsApp line is still on, still active. You can find us on 0793 267 279. And this is from Barbie Nad who says, good morning. It should not take place. It should not happen. A lot can take place in the office. Thank you very much. Interesting. So yeah, quite a few views here and there. Now let's go back to the one that said, which one was it? I've forgotten now. Let me look at it again. This one said, yes, they understand you better, right? Dr. Julius, what do you think? Do you think that if you date your coworker, the understanding is more in comparison to dating somebody who's in a completely different field?
You know one thing, I think what has happened with a lot of relationship, we have a lot of acting.
Okay.
I think if couples or people who are dating were to be put in Hollywood, they would win medals.
Interesting.
True. There's a lot of acting. And you see now, when you are here in the workplace, this is you.
Yes.
There are times you adjust to there, you may get annoyed. When you're giving your best, when it's working, then your character comes up.
Okay.
Your nature, the way you work, it shows up. The way you treat others, it shows up.
Yes.
Now, if somebody is interested, they will learn so much about you. In fact, I've been to a place and I know a few people who are working in certain supermarkets and they're actually a couple.
Okay.
And they're like, the reason I married this girl is the way she works hard here.
Oh.
The way she treats people here. But they have maintained a professionalism.
Right.
So the thing is, it's a true point that you can know that person very well in the negative way or in the positive way.
Yes.
But as we said, the risks for dating a coworker are so high that if you lose your job,
yeah,
maybe the same person may not even want to support you. Since you lost your job, maybe you became angry at the workplace and now they say, "Si wende uleta kisirani." That's why you are fired.
Okay.
And so it's actually, we say, number one, it's an opportunity. Workplace is where you can be able to learn about somebody because you're spending a lot of time with them. Number two, we say couples should have common interests. So if you're working in the same field, like you said, an army person will understand an army person.
Yes.
Because they know that this person can go to the bush for I don't know how many hours.
Yeah.
I mean, for how many days.
Yeah.
So you understand that person. You have a common interest together.
Right.
Number three, the challenges you're facing, they are common. So even when you sit at home and you're trying to solve some issues, you are solving the same issues.
Together.
But now when a doctor and an accountant come to the table, and this one is saying, I have not reconciled my books, and the other one is, I have not operated on a kidney, those two things may not be compatible at all.
Okay.
So I think workplace is an opportunity where you can see well, but I will keep on that disclaimer, maturity is the key.
Yeah, emotional intelligence, maturity, professionalism also comes into play. Naseem, when Dr. Julius has just mentioned that this person could possibly, understand you better, they could be able to feel where you're coming from. But then also on the flip side, if you lose your job sometimes, they wouldn't be able to support you as much because first, they know how much you're earning. They know what you bring to the table, right? So do you think it's dangerous, especially when your partner already has all these preconceived notions about you, your job, what you do? They know everything. It's like an open book. And I feel like sometimes when you start dating people, in the beginning, you're a bit wary of revealing all these details. But then again, when you work with someone, they already know all these things about you. Could this be dangerous?
It could actually. Like I said, we have a lot of actors, in the dating scene. But then again, he calls it acting, or I call it conforming, whereby, this person expects this and that. I'll try and mold myself into that material, that he's what he expects and he wants. So there's a very big, it's very dangerous also when someone knows you too well.
Okay.
Because they can play to your tune. They can act according to, how they know you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would be risky, and at the same time, it would also work out. But then at the back of it all, maturity and professionalism is what I feel like we're emphasizing today a lot on. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I've got lots of messages coming in on WhatsApp. So this is from Edward Ochieng, who says, it isn't right to date a coworker because you might be dating your boss's crush. This will cause you a lot of trouble. Very, very interesting. Another one from Victor Analysis, who says, when relationships hit the wall, you will collide with your bosses and earn disrespect from fellow colleagues. We've already talked about this, and it's quite a valid point. From Machakos County, this is from Richard, who says, I think dating a co-worker is the best option since you know each other well and, you know both sides, and also there's negative and positives. Interesting. Now, Nameless says, no, not Nameless msanii, but Nameless has mentioned, yeye afanye kazi yake na mimi nifanye yangu. Let's keep it professional. Right. Edward Ochieng's message, I think it's very interesting because he says that you could be dating your boss's crush. Let's talk about that. Dr. Julius.
You can imagine what is
Yeah.
happening. Eh? There are guys who have been fired simply because they were dating, as you're saying, the boss's crush.
Okay.
And maybe the boss has tried and
It
has
didn't
been
work.
told no.
Yes.
And now he's seeing you smiling, coming from lunch, sharing ice cream there and there. Maybe you're even whispering sweet nothings at the table. And the guy is hurting. And the only thing that he can do is to fire you. So,
Because he has no other way
he has no other way.
to deal with his emotions.
So that's why we say dating at the workplace can be risky because, as I mentioned before, there are jealousies.
Yes.
And you will find definitely, even whether it's men or women, when you come to the workplace, there are people who will may find maybe 5 guys like you,
Okay.
or maybe 5 chicks like you.
Yeah.
Now you can imagine the kind of negativity you'll bring to that workplace because all of them are feeling, if you got one of them, then all the others are feeling the rejection. So it can affect the work performance completely. Number 2, it will create a lot of gossip. If you guys come in the morning and you're not talking, there is already somebody picking some vibes there. Did you see the way she talked to him? And of course, it opens up that kind of woman. I mean, there's a lot of gossip in the workplace. Number 3, as she said before, there is that aspect of if a favor is done to you, assuming it is your boss who has done it for you, they will always think it's because you also did something, maybe in the night. That's why you're being favored on this way. So they don't see the credibility of your qualification. And the other aspect of it,
Yes.
if there is any negative thing that happens in that relationship between 2 of you,
Yeah.
again, then there are people who may actually celebrate it. So if you're hurting because you have been left, and you're also hurting because there are people who are celebrating that you have been left.
Okay.
So that is where you find a lot of people saying, workplace relationship, no.
Yeah.
So
It's tricky.
And especially like that one of you and your boss, utaumia.
Yeah.
You find you're being sent for errands for a week. and then there is no any allowance, hardship allowance. You're being sent away simply because the boss wants you away from his crush. So I think there is a lot of dynamics in these kind of relationships. And that is where you find a lot of companies emphasize no relationships.
Yeah. The policy.
Because they have seen.
Yes.
And nowadays, we're also having, assuming you get married.
Yeah.
That means if there are companies who are saying the men should also go for maternity allowance,
Yeah.
time away. So if your wife goes away for 3 months or 6 months, the man also goes for 3. So you find it will affect the job performance.
Very interesting take there. Actually, I didn't think about it in that way, but yeah, good point there. All right, Naseem, I've got a message here from Peter Thorne Juguna on Facebook. That's at TV47 Kenya. And he says, it all depends on how one feels in the first place. There are people who are guided by conscience and principle, and then they've got strong tenets and also personality to be able to safeguard this relationship. So just as you said, I feel like the principle of this conversation is leading back to the same thing. How mature are you? How are your principles? How are your morals? Are you somebody who is able to differentiate the two, who's able to put the two in two different places? And also, are you able to be able to differentiate between the emotions that you need at work and the emotions that you need at home, right?
Yeah.
Are you professional enough? In situations where people aren't able to differentiate the two, do you think it's best to end that relationship? Because the future is looking very tricky because firstly, you're at work. You don't want to be hated by everyone around you. Number two, you're at home, you're always fighting, you're constantly bringing about topics about what happened at work. You know, I feel like sometimes you can possibly lose that relationship because all you do is talk about work.
Yes, because there's this thing we call work-life balance.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're with your partner at work and from work you get home and it's still, you know, the same conversation and everything,
Yeah.
then the work-life balance is missed.
Yes.
So if you can't balance the two, then I feel like dating a coworker is honestly not for you.
It's not for you. Okay, very interesting take there. And you know, personally speaking, I have seen situations where people could be dating and they have nothing to talk about apart from work. So I've seen husbands and wives or boyfriends and girlfriends actually have a rule.
True.
Listen, as soon as you get home, if we're on a date, we're not discussing work. Okay? We are going to put work aside. We're going to talk about other things. We could talk about, you know, what's happening in the news. We could talk about some other people. We could gossip about other people. But let's not talk about work because I feel like it could be detrimental for the relationship. Because what happens when you lose that job, right? What happens when you take work out of your relationship? What happens when you move jobs? Will you still have things to talk about, Dr. Julius?
I think that's one of the key things that actually we say it's a precaution for if you're thinking about dating a coworker. The relationship can easily get bored. Boredom can easily kick in.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that you talk about. It's like, for example, guys who are, I once used to work in the matatu industry.
Okay.
Your conversation revolves around speed, cops, and garage. So you can imagine the whole day you're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
You're working with your wife and you go home and you're talking about cars. I mean, you're talking about speed, cops, and garage every single day because you're in the same environment. She tries to tell you a new thing. Did you see the news today? You're like, yeah, I read the news. I'm actually the one who read those news. So boredom can easily kick in. And you find for any relationship to be vibrant, it is the aspect of, what do you call it? When there is something new in it. Like, for example, even if you're working for 2 TV stations, maybe
Right.
your boyfriend is working in one and the other one, you're working in the other one. You come up and you are able to share ideas. But if you're working in the same environment, now you will end up discussing same people, you'll end up discussing same situations and same issues that are happening within the environment. So boredom is a reality.
Okay.
You're going home, you have nothing else to talk about.
Okay.
But that aspect of surprising, you come in the evening and you're saying, how was your day? And you begin to explain what things happen. Even if it could be a different department, it would be better. So there are a lot of cons when it comes to working, having a relationship in the workplace. The pros are fewer than the cons. Because the pros are like, you share interest. It's a good opportunity to know that person better.
Spend more time
you can
together.
Spend time together.
Yeah.
But when you look at the negativity, there are more.
Okay.
The performance may be affected, gossip in the office, the jealousy in the office, maybe threats from your boss. If you are promoted, somebody will say, oh, amepromotiwa kwa sababu alifanya kitu, and all that.
Okay, so I've got a message from Slavonic who says, it's good when dating a house girl, but only if you're a watchman in the same place. A very interesting comparison over there. Another message on WhatsApp that says, I got my wife at work, but when the relationship got more serious, one had to quit to create that fire burning. And now 10 years on, we are good, blessed with kids. That's beautiful.
Wonderful.
That's a wonderful success story. Thank you so much for your message. You are Omeru. All right. Another one that says dating a co-worker is distracting since one could only think about who we're dating. Thus, it lowers work performance, right? We already discussed this earlier on and said that it could lead to lower productivity because, you know, distractions are in place here and there. And I feel like sometimes, you know, when you're with your loved one, you think about what you're going to go and do at home, at work, because you're seeing them consistently. I feel like yeah, sometimes it could be a case of lower productivity, but I feel like that also comes only in the beginning of the relationship, maybe during the honeymoon phase. And then I guess now when you get used to seeing this person every day, you get used to working around this person. I feel like things could easen up a bit. Yeah? What do you think, Naseem?
Again, double-sided sword.
Yeah.
They could easen up, yes. And at the same time, once you get too used to someone, you when the honeymoon phase is gone and you're already comfortable with this person, there's a certain way you might start carrying yourself at work, you know, when you're with this person and everything. So that can also get affected. But I feel like I'll say something that I normally say to every person that comes to me when it comes to relationships and everything. Always gauge your values, your expectations and all that. So that when your expectations are not met, you already know how to handle them. When your expectations are met, you know how to receive that
Yes.
and appreciate it and so on. The same thing with values. We have partners that maybe we don't have the same values and everything. So how do we handle that? How do we deal with that? Because something might arise at work that might need you to decide or, you know, take sides or, you know, debate on and everything. So where does that leave both of you? And so I feel like there's a lot that needs to be explored. But then again, at the same time, if you're not looking at this into like a serious thing and everything is just a fling, then by all means go for it. Because you know, at the end of it all, I'm just here for fun, not, you know, a long time and everything.
It's interesting you mentioned that because a lot of people on Facebook actually have been saying that. They said that if the relationship is just for pleasure, then yes, by all means. But if it's for the long run, if it's for keeps, if it's something that you want to pursue in future, then it's a bit tricky. So I feel like a lot of people think the same way because yes, you meet this person every day, you're attracted to this person, so you probably will end up having a relationship, but not a romantic relationship. It could just be a physical relationship and just for pleasure. So I feel like maybe the younger lot, and most of these messages that have come in are from men. The men have said a lot of these things that I'm saying right now, that yes, for pleasure, yes, but not for keeps. Interesting. Dr. Julius, you know, when it comes to psychology and when it comes to the human mind and brain, do you think that seeing this person every day sometimes could mean that you're attracted to them more? Do you think that's something that has an effect on how you feel for somebody because you're seeing them all the time? So you end up finding them more attractive rather than just meeting somebody online, for instance. You've not really seen them. You've not really seen how they are in person. So yeah, could physical attraction also come into play and increase just because of the fact that there's more familiarity and you're seeing each other every day?
There are two sides to that reality with human mind. There are times seeing somebody too much may actually bore you.
Okay.
You're like, I have seen enough. I'm not interested.
Okay.
That's why you find most people will not marry for example, you'll hear very few people will say that they married their high school sweetheart or their primary school.
University sweetheart,
because
yeah.
they spend so much time together that they actually got bored. It's like something, you know, something valuable, something that is not so present becomes precious.
Okay.
And so workplace can create that kind of a boredom. But there is also the curiosity that comes. Maybe there is something, that person has a personality that is creating a lot of curiosity in the other mind. That is what would create an interest. But as we say, when it comes to relationship, it is the curiosity that causes the person to be interested in the other person. Number two, it is the demand that they are seeing of you. Maybe it is, for example, for men, when they see a lot of men looking at one person, the competitiveness kicks in. There is somebody who just wants to win. There is somebody who is going for that lady simply because he wants to win just around the park. After they've won, then the boredom kicks in.
Okay.
So there's a possibility that if you're working together, a lot of boredom can kick in.
Yes.
And because you're spending the time together, you are seeing each other. But you find also there are people who are in an organization and work in different departments. For example, they only see each other a little while, and that can create a lot of curiosity in wanting to know who is that particular person. But and one of the things that I also wanted to add when it comes to the challenges of relationship in the workplace is the issue of now the boundaries. You create, assuming it is a guy, and you're dating this girl in the workplace,
Yes.
other guys will feel like they don't want really to work with her. Because maybe if they smile too much with her,
You'll come for them.
they see you looking.
Yeah.
You may not even be doing anything.
It's just
but
an
they feel like
uncomfortable place to be.
it's very uncomfortable. If maybe the lady smiles too much with you, you look on their way, suddenly the guy has to change the way they are doing it. And so it can create even poor performance and poor relationship with the couple in the workplace, simply because the other people are feeling like this one has already been taken, and when you try to get into her space simply because of work, we are being looked at in a funny way. So that's why it's still discouraged.
Okay, all right. Now remember, you can be a part of this conversation. As I said, lots and lots of interesting views coming in. We've been airing most of them. And if you're watching at home and you want to be a part of this very interesting topic that we've been having for the past 1 hour, please feel free to do so. The WhatsApp number is 0793267279. You can find us on social media. My Instagram handle, my X handle is at Shiksha Arora. That's SHIKSHAARORA, at TV47KE on Facebook and as well as Instagram. And of course, if you want to find us on X, that's at TV47 News. Be a part of this very interesting, very hot topic today. We're talking about relationships, and we're talking about dating your co-worker. Would you do it? If yes, why? And if not, why not? It's time for us to take a short commercial break, but we will be back. Don't go too far.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The concepts changed.
Good morning, you're watching The Morning Cafe. This is TV47 and I'm Shiksha Arora, and with me in studio we have Dr. Julius Kimani, a psychologist as well as a counselor, as well as Naseem Katha, who is a psychologist and the founder of Hugs. Right, now let's talk about this particular topic where we discuss relationships, at work, dating your coworker, how it pans out. It's been quite an interesting conversation that we've been having, lots of different opinions coming in. So, let's continue with the conversation and let's get into boundaries. Now, for instance, you are dating your partner, and I feel like sometimes there could be some overstepping happening here and there. How do you draw boundaries both at work and at home to make this relationship work, and not just the relationship that you have romantically, but also the work relationship? Naseem.
So boundaries are borrowed from values.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you value will help you set the boundaries. And we have different types of boundaries. There's those boundaries whereby you feel like mezoeana sana. So it feels like I need to draw some sort of boundaries.
So it doesn't affect your work?
Yes, it doesn't affect my work. Yes. And at the same time, now the relationship boundaries aspect. So you need to first of all understand your work environment and everything, and also understand how you and your partner relate. And again, you might find a situation whereby maybe you are at a higher management level than maybe your partner. And in this case, it means you need to act your role when it comes to work, and when you get back home, then the situation or the dynamics change. So it means you really need to know how to navigate yourself around your partner at work based on your job description and roles and everything, and how now that translates when you get back home. Because especially there's this thing in our African culture whereby if a woman is a boss at work, and you're not supposed to carry middle boss at home. So you need to know how to navigate those two, whereby at work I'll be the manager. When I come home, I can be able to submit to a certain level, other than make you feel like you're inferior to me or you're still beneath me and everything. So I feel like that might affect the relationship, especially if you don't know how to cut those boundaries and know how to act at work and how to act at home.
Okay, interesting. What about you, Dr. Julius? What are your thoughts when it comes to setting boundaries, just so that A, it doesn't affect your work performance, and also B, it doesn't affect your relationship?
I think it's very important to discuss very openly what is happening at the workplace and the boundaries that needs to be set. Number one, assuming now, let's even take it to another level, that you are a man and a wife.
Okay.
And you're working in the same organization. Now, you need to agree, for example, that when we go to workplace, one thing that we should avoid is that public display of affection. You're not going to be hugging, you're not going to be holding hands, you're not going to be pecking. Maybe I come to your table and I'm there pecking you on 14th February, I bring a bouquet of flowers.
Okay.
I think that you need to agree. Number two, you also need to agree that, you see, your spouse could be working with opposite gender. How do they relate with those opposite gender?
Right.
You need to agree from the beginning that on how they're going to handle that.
Okay.
For example, you'd see sometimes maybe you're working, your wife may be laughing with guys in the office, and now you're getting angry simply because she's laughing. And so you spoil that environment. I think you need to allow that person to be in the office or workplace. Now, when it comes to, for example, she has said about where there is the boss aspect of it. Maybe the man is the boss and the wife is a subordinate. She will not be coming to spend every time she's lunchtime. She comes to your office as the boss. Yes, she's your wife, but now she comes to your office to have lunch together there. It will also create tensions, because there are people who may want to see you as a boss. And now, since your wife is sitting in the office with you, it will hinder some of the interactions that may be there. Number four, you need to agree on how, especially assuming you're a supervisor and you're supervising, can you imagine a lady? You are a supervisor to your husband. and maybe he's not performing well.
Actually, yeah, I was going to ask that. What happens in such a situation?
How do you communicate
How
that?
do you tell him that, no, listen, this is not how it's done because this is how you should do it? Sometimes they feel that you're just showing that they're inferior to you and you're superior to them.
You see, that's a very tricky issue. Can you imagine now you're talking, then you forget, and you know he's called George and you at home you call him Baba Kamau. So you're like, Baba Kamau, you didn't, and then oops. So you need to agree. Those are the boundaries we're talking about.
Okay.
That when it comes to the workplace, when I'm addressing you, if I'm coming to you, George,
call me this.
And I'm saying, like, I used to be the principal of the school, and my wife was the deputy.
Wow.
And when you're in the school, she would be saying, Mr. Principal. And I would be calling her the deputy. But the moment we leave the school and we go home, we change.
Okay.
And we would say, leave your titles at the door.
Yes.
Let's come in. And you see, there is that. There is also that challenge of you're working together, you arrive home together, and now both of you have to now take up the roles of the family. And the woman most likely goes to the kitchen. You are tired the same way.
Father, mom, wife, husband.
And now the husband is sitting back watching TV. And you worked the same way the whole day.
The same amount.
It can be challenging. So agreeing on those boundaries in advance is very important.
Okay.
Then have reviews. If something happens at the workplace which was uncomfortable, have a review instead of waiting for it to spill over. Sit down and discuss an issue. I saw this happen in the office. What do you think we need to do about it? Or maybe there's somebody who doesn't know that I'm married to you, and they approached me in a negative way. How do we deal with that? Does the man go showing muscles and says, don't joke around with my wife? Or is it the responsibility of the wife now to tell that other person that I have a relationship? It may not be necessarily here, but I have a relationship, keep your boundaries. So these are some of the things that they need to keep on discussing to create a success. Just like an organization, the way you keep on reviewing sales every week, I think for a relationship like that one in the workplace to be successful, there has to be a lot of reviews.
Okay, interesting. Now, Naseem, there could be a point where you don't want to tell people about your relationship. You know, you want to stay discreet. You want to keep it on the low. But then officially, you want to also release maybe some sort of a statement or just let your colleagues know that, look, we are officially together. And you decide to go public eventually. What advice would you like to give a couple that's just started a relationship, but they don't want to tell anybody yet? They wanted to keep it private for a while until now they're ready to go public. And how long do you think they should wait until now they tell everybody else?
So first of all, is the secrecy mutual? Is it that both of them agree to this, or is it that one person feels like they're not ready to get it out there and the other one feels like mbona unanificha and everything? So they need to really have that conversation of is it mutual? Are we both agreeing to this? And if it's one person that feels like I'm not ready to have this conversation with everyone else, then they should help the other partner understand. When it comes to communication, I normally say comprehensive communication, not just tell you I'm not ready to say this or, you know, let everyone know or go public with this, but help you understand or help you see where I'm coming from. So if both of them then understand each other, then well and good. But if it's those things of one person is willing to let the world know and the other one is hiding and whatever reasons they're giving is not valid or the other partner is not understanding it, then that also, it's already a problem from the word go. So meaning the future of that relationship will be a little bit, you know, shaky. What I can advise them is communication, comprehensive communication. Understand where your partner is coming from and them understanding you where you're coming from, and then from there you can make a conscious decision moving forward. And at the same time, if it's at the work environment and you feel like you're ready, again, run it through the HR, understand the, you know, policies. I know there's certain organizations whereby there's a form that you need to, you know, fill, and the constant, you know, visits to the HR in regards to your relationship.
Give them updates.
Yes,
if you're still together or not.
And at the same time, I feel like it's a lot of, I feel like they do this because it's a lot of things you need to do, and it's kind of tedious, just to show you, are you really sure this is what you want?
Yeah.
So if you commit to it, then also the HR figures, okay, they're serious, this is what they want to do. So I feel like once there's so many rules around it and you feel like these are too much, a lot of rules for me to handle, then don't do it. Just, date someone outside, or, far from your work environment.
Interesting. You've mentioned HR we've all mentioned HR quite a bit of times. But what if you're in love with the HR?
There's that.
Then what happens? If you want to date HR, what happens in such a situation, Dr. Julius?
As a HR, I would change the policies.
That would be tricky, though. Imagine you
go and do a silent policy.
imagine the person you love is the head of HR. Now what?
I think what we're saying, I've seen relationship can succeed if they are kept discreet. The challenge we have with especially with the current society,
yes,
as you mentioned, there is somebody who wants to be posted. Maybe you are saying before you used to say single, not dating.
Yeah.
And now you started dating, and now he's asking you, why are you not putting me?
Yeah, my face
on your Facebook,
on social media.
I've put you on my social status, and you're not putting me there.
Yeah.
So I believe the challenges where most relationships fail is because we announce them too early. I think the time you need to announce a relationship is when you have decided we are getting married. Announce it. Otherwise, there are some unnecessary battles you will fight.
That come into play.
They come into play. Because at that particular moment, you're saying, this chapter is closed for anybody else.
Yes.
This is a lady, she has decided that I am moving on with this guy to another level, and but as long as you have not closed that, it's like a car on sale. Anybody will try to say, can I drive this one or take it around somewhere? So keep it discreet if you're the HR and you're fallen in love with the marketing manager. Don't market your relationship. Manage your policies very well. Until the time you feel then this one needs to go to the next level, we announce to the organization, and it may require you, especially as a HR, you may be required maybe to resign. And so weigh what it may mean for you if you have to step down from that organization. But there are some relationships that are very nice, that if you look at it, you are like, I'm okay with it. If I lose this one, I'm ready to lose the job to continue with this particular relationship.
All right.
So keep it discreet.
Okay.
Until the right time.
Until the right time. Interesting take there. Now remember, you can find us on social media at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The conversation is getting heated. Remember, lots of feedback coming in. So if you would like to chime in, if you also want to be a part of this conversation, interact with us. We've got one message that's come in from Kenny Mutugi, who says, Kwanza hayo mapenzi yanakuanga matamu sana. I think Kenny has a point, because as you said, Daktari, I feel like you spend so much time with this person and you see them every single day. Usually when you're married or you're dating somebody, if you're dating somebody, you meet them maybe once or twice a week, unless you live together. If you're married to somebody, you meet them just for 3 hours. But most of the time, you're spending with your co-workers, right? So if it's nurtured well, this could be a very fruitful relationship.
True.
Yeah. Another one that says, Peter Tirop amesema office romance is illegal, compromises work output, ends up with conflict of interest and gossip plus harassment as well as bias. I feel like Peter maybe is from the HR department because of that particular comment. Completely, for him, it's a no. We've got Billy who says, a big yes for me. Interesting. I've got another one that says, ati hata kuuliza eti unafanya kazi gani na mshahara ni. We already discussed this as well, because, at the end of the day, if you're dating somebody who's in the same workplace as you, they already know all these details, right? There's no situation where you can say, I'm making 50,000, but in reality, you're making 200,000 and you're lying to your partner, because they'll know everything.
True. You will not lie to them that you are late.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, it will help the relationship to be very truthful.
Yeah. You wouldn't say you're at work when you're not really at work, because they know what time work ends, right? What time office hours are. So if you're lying to your wife or husband saying that, babe, I'm at work, imagine you'll get caught. You can't do things. So cheating is not there. I've got a message from Alex who says, dating a co-worker is dangerous since most of us individuals have relationships with employers. Ooh, okay. Now, since we've mentioned cheating, let's talk about this. Alex has a very interesting point, right? What if you are having a relationship with your co-worker and you end up having the eyes for somebody else? Now, this is a third party that's come into play who also ends up being a co-worker. How does this end up playing out, Nasim?
Of course, again, we go back all the way back to emotional intelligence.
Yes.
We spoke about self-regulation. If I know personally I'm the kind of person that doesn't handle breakups well, then I know very well I might start causing drama, packing his clothes from home and bringing them at work and everything, all that aspect of drama and everything is very unnecessary. So if I know very well this is something I can't handle, then again, workspace is not for it. Because again, if this person got you from work, then there's a whole pool of other people that he can also get from work. So what makes you feel so special that it's only you he noticed in that workplace? So if this doesn't work out, then most definitely he'll get someone else. And there's something he mentioned about familiarity.
Yes.
I feel like psychologically speaking, we are all drawn to familiarity. What causes anxiety is that uncertainty. But now if I am familiar with this person, then it brings certainty that I am aware where he is, I know what he's doing and everything, so I won't be anxious of where, he was and whatnot. So all that, it might be confused with love, whereby you feel like I'm really into this person, but it's just because mezoyana, that familiarity aspect of things.
Yeah.
So when you get into it and you start realizing, oh, the same feeling I have for this one I also have for this other person, and not understanding it's just because you're always in the same spaces, then that also might cause a problem. So before you even decide to get into it, ask yourself, is this the real deal? Or is it because that I'm seeing them so often?
I'm just attracted to them.
Yes, and now I'm confusing whatever it is that I'm feeling. The same thing with your siblings and everything. You do love them, but you love them because this is my brother and everything. Outside that, you would have felt something different. So I feel the more you're used to someone and in the same environment, the more confusing the feelings are. Okay. So you really need to figure that out, because if you don't figure that out, then there'll be a lot of, I'll be with this one this month, I'll be with someone else next month. So yeah, I feel like you need to understand the emotional regulation aspect of things and really ask yourself, is this the real thing or not?
All right. What about you, Dr. Julius? What are your thoughts when it comes to being in a relationship with your partner, and then, for instance, you end up having something with a boss, or, you end up feeling a certain kind of way with another person in the office just because of the familiarity? You're seeing another third person for the longest time, and you now start getting drawn to this person. In such a situation, it can get messy. Obviously, HR can get involved because it does get ugly at times. So what would you like to tell somebody who is in such a situation?
No, if it has happened to you, of course, it's very painful.
Yes.
To discover that the person you like in your work is cheating with somebody else at the workplace.
Who could be your friend.
Who could be your friend, actually, yeah. So it's very painful. And that is where now I will say you need to be very sober.
Right.
Because it can cause you to lose your job. You have already lost a relationship. So now the other thing that can happen is lose your job. So be very sober. If possible, look for help. Because most people, when breakups happen, most people don't tend to look for help. We listen to the wrong advice, and sometimes we act the wrong way. And this is where a counselor comes in. And I believe in workplaces, there are people who are like counselors.
Yes.
People who can actually listen.
Yeah.
Because at that particular time when you are hurting, the most important thing that you're looking for is somebody to listen. Look for somebody who can listen to you. The number 3 thing, I think that's number 2. I'm trying to imagine you are reporting to work and you know that this is still happening. You have to be so strong to put your focus on work.
Yeah, and not think about what's
going on.
And
not think about what is going on. If possible, talk to the HR. If he's not the one who has taken your partner, talk to the HR. Tell them of what you're going through.
Yeah.
And if possible, they can probably transfer you to a different department.
Okay.
Because that can help you. You know, if you're spending the same time in the same office with the same person, that can cause a lot of chaos. So ask if possible, you can be transferred to a different department. And the third thing that you can do is, if there's a possibility of taking a leave early, take it. Maybe just go away for 1 month.
Yes.
And let the relationship hiyo yao iendelee. Alafu, by the time you're coming back,
yourself from that
you are
situation.
withdrawn from that situation and you come back stronger.
Okay, interesting. And it's interesting that we've just talked about this because Teresa has mentioned on WhatsApp, she says, I've been in a relationship with a worker and it's so sweet until you find out that he or she is having someone else in the same workplace. So it's not something that is rare. It does happen.
It happens.
And people have experienced this. We've got Mercy who says dating a co-worker is interesting because you get to not only love your partner, but also you end up loving work as well. Oh, I love that. As people said, mapenzi ni matamu, because I feel like sometimes when you go to work, you get excited to wake up in the morning to go to work because you're going to not just be going to work, but also you're going to be end up seeing the person that you love and you spend more time with them. So yeah, I guess, you know, two sides of the coin. There's a lot going on in this particular conversation. We've discussed so many different elements, so many different factors have come into play with regards to how to maneuver your relationship, how to maneuver work if you're dating somebody in the same workplace as you. And I've had a great time, quite an interesting conversation here. And really, we've gone in depth, I can say, an hour, 25 minutes of this conversation because of the amount that you've engaged with us. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Asante sana, Dr. Julius Kimani, for being on the couch and, of course, discussing this topic at length. Of course, we also have Nasim Katha, who's also a part of this conversation in studio with me. And thank you so much for watching from home. We'll do this next week. Relationships will continue every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on TV 47 on the Morning Cafe Show. I am Shiksha Arora. It's time to take that short break, but we will be back with Tasty Wednesday. And